After my personal struggle with food left me sick and suicidal, I was struck with the realization that food alone can't fix us. So I set out to discover what could, and what I found changed everything. After coaching thousands of clients and interviewing the world's leading experts, I realized it was time to start a bigger conversation. What are you really hungry for?
It's great.
Ooh, good one.
What am I really hungry for?
I love that question.
It's time to discover what you're really hungry for. This episode is brought to you by the Institute of Transformational Nutrition. ITN offers the first and only personalized nutrition certification program that's backed by science and proven to get clients actual results and coaches actual income. If you're ready to be proud of what you do, feel like you matter, make a difference in someone's life, and actually get paid for it, then visit transformationalnutrition.com to take your first class toward your certification for free. Today's topic is a sensitive one. It's difficult because it's connected to so many of us in such a deeply profound way. Our relationship with food and our bodies can be at best okay, and at worst excruciating. The opinions, thoughts, and ideas that I express by saying them out loud are my own. They are not meant to be projected or reflected on anyone other than me. They are my beliefs alone. They are my truth. And again, they are for me. The opinions, thoughts, and ideas my guests express by saying them out loud are their own. And sometimes those opinions, thoughts, and beliefs change day by day, sometimes minute by minute, because this is such a deep-seated topic for so many of us. And that's okay. In fact, it's perfect. Sometimes my opinions, thoughts, and ideas are not the same as my guest, and that's okay. In fact, that's perfect. You see, if we're to have a bigger conversation, deeper conversations, then we must each be willing to honor our truth and stand in the power of our beliefs in order to meet at a place where we can see eye to eye and come together to create change bigger than any one of us could ever have created on their own. I hope this episode makes you think. I hope it makes you feel. I hope it makes you form your own opinion. And I hope it makes you give yourself permission for that opinion to change based on your own needs for growth and expansion without judgment on yourself or anyone else. I hope you understand and know fully in your heart of hearts that we're all in this together, no matter what our beliefs are. And I hope that you believe that you are enough, that you are worthy, that you are perfect just as you are, regardless of your size, shape, color, race, gender, sexual preference, sexual orientation, or anything else that might define you in some small way in this human journey. So watch the episode, open your heart, open your mind, and take what serves you. There's a saying that real women have curves. You've probably heard it or seen it on someone's Facebook wall. It's popular in advertising as well, featuring the bodies of real women instead of models. What makes a woman real? What makes a body positive? In my opinion, all bodies are real. All bodies are positive. When we try to elevate one type of body over another as more real or more positive, we're effectively shaming people who don't embody that type of body shape or size. We're essentially saying that one type of body is right and the other type isn't. Instead of saying everybody's body is fine, we're saying that some women are real while other women are, what, make-believe? It doesn't make sense for a movement to be about acceptance and embracing women and yet shame so many women about their bodies because it doesn't fit a different type of standard. Ultimately, as my guest today so eloquently puts it, I don't think body shaming comes from a place of hatred. It comes from a place of fear. We end up making one type of body more important than the other because we fear that we won't be accepted. And no one wants to be different. The biggest reason that I personally don't support the movement is because it keeps us focused exclusively on our bodies, no matter what the size is. But can't we rise above that? Can't we hold ourselves to a higher standard as women, as imperfectly perfect beings on this planet with gifts and talents to share? Isn't just being able to approve of what we see in the mirror setting the bar pretty low for women? Let's get out of our heads and get into our hearts. Let's move beyond the body completely. You are not your body. You are so much more. Let's focus on seeing each other as souls, other beings wandering through this space and time, just trying to do the best we can with what we've been given. That's hard enough as it is, without the added pressure of trying to make others accept your body. Let's move forward already. If you love your big body, great, love it. If you want to lose weight, perfect, lose it. If you want to be healthier regardless of your body size and shape, I'm here to help. If you want to lose weight, I can tell you how to do that. But those things shouldn't define you. Instead, focus on discovering what you're really hungry for and supporting others in doing the same. Now that is a positive movement that I can get behind. My guest today, Kaila Prins, is a woman on a mission to help women feel accepted at any body size. Kaila, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is my favorite thing to talk about. So
is it really?
Yes.
Why is it like your favorite thing?
So I recovered from an eating disorder. About 9 years actively in an eating disorder, and then 4 years, hopping around from bodybuilding to vegan to paleo to, just basically trying to continue my disordered behaviors under the guise of some kind of food and fitness, right?
Right.
Certified personal trainer, trying to quit my job to be a personal trainer, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So for me, my focus on my body has been my entire life.
Wow.
And it got to a point where things started to come to a head, and I realized that there was more to life than just focusing on this part, and maybe like a little bit of this could be good.
What a concept.
Right? So, getting involved in feminism and health at every size and the body positive movement has been a huge part of my recovery and a huge part of the next steps that I've taken on my journey.
Yeah.
And so kind of discussing where this movement is now and where it could go and what's next and what, we can do as actual people who are struggling with body image issues.
Yeah.
That's basically all I talk about all day long. So
I love that. Well, we're going to talk about it. Well, maybe not all day long because I know you got places to be, but we're going to talk about it for a minute. So this whole body positive movement, I think it's great that we want to be accepting. I truly do. I think it's amazing. However, I'm concerned that the ways that we're trying to do it, or the way specifically that we're trying to do it with the body positive movement, is excluding people. And instead of being accepting, we're doing the opposite of what we say that we really want, right? So how do you view that? Like, what are your thoughts around this? Is it really moving women forward and moving, acceptance forward, or is it really just shaming another group of women who don't look like what they look like?
Sure, and I think it's sort of twofold, right?
Yeah.
And the metaphor that I use, which is maybe not the best metaphor since not everyone has this experience, but I look at the body positive movement the same way that I look at eating disorder recovery. There's a point where you absolutely need it for a group that has been either marginalized or oppressed or hasn't been able to access acceptance or anything like that.
Right.
You absolutely, with recovery, you have to go through it. You have to go through that period where you're obsessively counting calories and focused on this. Body positivity, the same thing. We have to go through this period where we are focused on the kind of bodies that haven't been seen, the kind of bodies that haven't been accepted, the kind of bodies that have been shamed or marginalized or oppressed, etc.
Yes.
And then at some point it does stop being useful once we get to that point, with recovery, when you get to the point where you're recovered, but you're still holding on to calorie counting or focusing on your food, it stops being productive.
Right.
And I can, it's easy for me to say this because, I'm white, I'm heterosexual, I'm cisgender, and I'm straight sized.
Sure.
So it's really easy for me to say, and if I go out into the street, I'm not going to be shamed for being fat, for being ugly, etc. So I understand, when I say these things, that there's an entire group of people that are still being marginalized and oppressed and do need to be seen.
But as women and, coming from this feminist point of view, can't we just hold ourselves to a higher standard? And look, I get there's emotional trauma over this, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that have been said and done to many of us, regardless of our bodies, and also because of our bodies, right? Yeah. So I guess for me, it's when do we get to that point of healing, and how do we do that, Kaila, so that we can move beyond it and focus on the bigger things in the world that we as women can really have an impact on?
So when I was in my eating disorder, I can tell you very vividly, I don't remember a lot because I was starving, basically, and intensely depressed. But I remember being on the subway, standing next to a girl who I really, really admire, who's an incredible, brilliant mind, Ivy League scholar, and we were talking, and my focus was on her arms. She's a thin woman, but I was convinced that her arms were fat, and my whole I don't remember anything about the conversation. I was so obsessed with the idea that my arms were thinner than hers, and therefore I was a better person. So now I do the opposite. I look for bodies to validate the idea that bodies can be any size, and that doesn't change the goodness or the brilliance or the creativity or anything about the person. It tells me nothing about them, including their health status. It tells me nothing about them. And so I dance burlesque now, and I do it specifically at body positive shows and in body positive venues because I get to see bodies of all kinds being sexy, owning themselves, being creative, telling a story. And it has started to reduce my own stigma. When I look in the mirror, I no longer use like fat day or I feel fat or any of these things because it doesn't tell me anything.
Right.
It tells me nothing. So I've changed my language. I've changed my visual language. I've changed my verbal and my mental language.
Yes.
And that has allowed me to get to a place where I can move past body positivity and needing to be in body positivity all the time.
Right.
Because I feel neutral about my body. And that is what I'm looking for.
I love that. And my question to you would be, how do we get to that point? Yeah. Because, I mean, obviously this is something that you've been focused on for a very long time and been very conscious and very intentional about it, which I love and have so much respect for you for doing. And I agree, the change starts with you. I get that. I 100% agree. But how did you get to that point? And how can we get to that point, I guess, is my bigger question. How do we start to do what you've done and see people as people? Yes, thank you.
So two things. Thing one, feminism. I know people hear that word and they go, "Oh, I'm not a feminist."
Let's talk about that for a second. Yeah. Can you? Because I feel like, when people say, "Oh, I'm a feminist," it's like, "Oh, you hate men," and you're like, "What? No,
exactly.
I love me some men."
Oh my gosh, yes.
Seriously, what is feminism? Can you just please set the record straight?
Well, I can't speak for everyone, obviously, in the feminist movement. And I think the feminism that I subscribe to is like the whatever wave we're on, intersectional feminism. It's the idea that my lived experience is not the most important experience, especially as a cisgender heterosexual white woman.
Yes.
Right? It's the idea that there are other experiences out there and they're all valid. Yeah. And the people who experience them deserve to be seen as people, to be addressed the way they want to be addressed, to live their lives without stigma or oppression or hate. Now, that doesn't just apply to women. Right. That applies to transgender and non-binary people. That applies to men. But to say that my privileged experience is a lens through which I see the world. Yes. And I acknowledge and honor that that is privileged and that I will work in any way that I can to just see through that privilege so that when I have a conversation with someone, I can do it in their terms so that it is no longer oppressive to them. That's really it. It's not easy.
That. For me, it also really does mean celebrating women, and honoring women and really owning my feminism. I don't want to be masculine, I want to let the men handle that. There are times that all women are masculine, right? Like I run a couple of businesses. It's really important sometimes for me to step in to that masculine energy, and I do, and it's great. Right. And I'm appreciative of that. I'm very grateful. But at the end of the day, I want to be that woman. And I look, women to me should be honored and adored and loved and respected. Men too, right?
But it's not one or the other.
It's not one or the other. Yes. It's not you have to choose sides, right? And that's where I feel like the misconception around feminism really comes into play.
100%. And, as I said, I'm a burlesque dancer. I'm a pole dancer. So I'm very in touch with with my female body, like identifying as a woman.
Yes.
For me, being femme.
Yes.
Is important, an important part of my identity.
Sure.
And so, you know, and that has been a huge part of my, what I call discovery. So I have two things that I believe in. There's recovery, and then there's the step after, and this is the one where you start to change your script, right? For me, recovery, whether it's from an actual eating disorder and an exercise addiction like I have, or if it's just disordered eating, dieting, constantly needing to change yourself, fix yourself, etc., to fit an ideal.
Yeah.
Recovery can apply to either one. The methods might be slightly different, but
Sure.
you know, the term is really about that period of fixing, that period of getting better, that
Yes.
period of being in your illness, learning to acknowledge it, learning to work around it, and then saying, okay, I'm done. And when you reach that point, if you stay in the fixing, if you stay in recovery, it doesn't get better.
Yeah.
That's when you move on to what I call discovery.
How do you know, before we talk about discovery, how do you know when it is time for you to move on? Because I've seen this.
Good question.
And I think it's not just, you know, with food addiction. I've seen it with all addiction, you know, and then I've seen people take one addiction and then just merge it into another, you know, and we stay in this recovery mode. It's like, oh, I was addicted to drugs, but now I'm addicted to spirituality.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So at what point do you know, and how do you know when it's time to move into discovery, as you call it?
I think it's very personal. It's a terrible answer. It's
I just
very
want you to
personal.
give me a black and white answer.
And that's the thing, is we all want it.
We do.
But I think it's when you reach that point where you go, enough is enough.
Yeah.
And I reached it, I was exhausted. I was exhausted by trying to fix everything. I hadn't had my period in 734 days. I'm admitting this on the air, right?
I looked at it, you have it 734 days.
I counted it. And
Wow.
I was fixing and fixing and fixing and trying desperately to paleo harder and not take any medication for it and stay, you know, like I wanted to be a personal trainer, and so I was working out all the time.
Yeah.
You know what happened when I worked out a little bit less and I paleoed a little bit less and I took the thyroid meds and I stopped focusing on it, and I stopped making my life about recovering my period and recovering my mindset and all of these things.
Yeah.
When I just took a chill pill. You know, and I was at that point where I was ready to make that decision, and I was able to do it in what I call an uncomfortable but not unsafe way. That's how you know you're ready. If it is unsafe for you to do an activity because it will lead you to be triggered and go the other direction. Right? Whereas where you say, for example, you know, it is unsafe for me to stop counting calories because if I go a day without counting calories, I will start binging, then I will over-exercise and I will hurt myself. That's unsafe. Don't do that. But if it's uncomfortable for you to not count calories at one meal, but you count the rest of the day and you feel okay, that's uncomfortable but not unsafe.
Right.
And so if you can just do that uncomfortable thing until you get to the point where your discomfort levels, they go down while your boundaries start to broaden. And when you get to that point where you're just uncomfortable all the time, which turns out being a human is suffering. Like, I hate to pull on Buddhism here, but it is. And we're all looking to, like, how do we get to be perfectly happy and whole?
Sure. Sometimes I wonder, Kaila, if we spent all the time and energy that we spend focusing on our bodies and being accepted and dieting and being perfect and all of these things, what if we took that time and energy and we focused it on the things that really matter in the world? Do you understand the kind of impact that we as women could have?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we all like to talk about, oh, we're changing the world, but that would change the world.
100%. And I think it's really important for us to understand that at no other point in history have people been as obsessed with their bodies. And if we can get to a point where we're educated enough about, you know, how do you find the healthy things that you need to live and nourish your body? How do you find the healthy movement and incorporate it? Again, these are privileged things, so I understand that.
Sure.
But if you can educate yourself, if you can get to the place where you have access, or if we can create more access for people, that would be cool too.
Yes, of course.
But if you can get to that place, then great.
Yeah.
The next step is body neutrality. Great. This is the body. This is carrying around the consciousness that is changing the world. This is, you know, this is the energy that I can use for burlesque or for going into STEM. You know, this is the energy that I can use for creating a family or running a company or both, right? And if you're busy focusing on trying to, you know, as, you know, Oprah said, find the thin woman inside of her when she's the most powerful woman in the world.
What's the first step? Do you feel like it's a recovery program in whatever that means?
So for a lot of people, it is going through a diet recovery program. Even if they don't have an eating disorder, getting through the disordered eating, getting to a place of body neutrality. You don't even have to love yourself. Like, I think that is too ambitious. You don't have to love yourself. I think that people get really upset because, you know what? It's hard to love yourself in a world that's telling you to hate yourself. So how about just get to a place where you can be okay when you walk out the door? Just be okay. And if we can get to okay, then maybe, yes, we'll get to body love later. But like, just exist. How about you can look at a picture and feel nothing? Yeah. Let's do that first.
I love that. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, you are making it happen, I would argue. And look, this is a big conversation. And, you know, obviously we all have our thoughts and opinions based on our own personal histories and what we've seen and experienced. And I have nothing but love and respect for everyone's story and for everyone's struggle, to go back to the Buddhism thing. And especially for you. And thank you for being here. Thank you for being so honest. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing and sharing your voice, you know. And thank you for a very respectful conversation, debate, like where we can, as women, come together in a mutual respect and just maybe spark something bigger.
Well, this is what we need to be doing. Thank you.
So, Kayla, the name of the show, as you know, is What You're Really Hungry For. So tell me Kayla, what are you really hungry for?
So today what I'm hungry for? Today what I'm hungry for is more opportunities to do this, to have thoughtful debate, to have thoughtful conversations, and to help move all of us forward together in one group without discrimination, oppression, or stigma. And more opportunities to do burlesque because, you know, it's maybe the most fun thing in the world. But honestly, you know, until I am obsolete, right, which is what I am ultimately hungry for. I want to be able to like retire and just watch Netflix for the rest of my life, right? But until I am obsolete, I want this. I want to have these conversations and continue to offer opportunities to people to view their bodies at least neutrally. You know, get to a place where you can go be Queen Elizabeth and not have to count your calories. Like, let's just get there.
I think we will. I know we will. With people like you, we're going to get there. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I adore you. Thank you for the light that you are in the world.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
This week is all about moving beyond the positive body movement and starting a bigger conversation. We discussed how focusing on one type of body as being positive or real can be damaging to anyone who doesn't fit that image, and how to focus on what's on the inside instead. So I invite you to choose one of Kayla's tips that she shared during our show and start implementing it in your life today. What one step can you take today to start accepting your body just as it is? What can you do to rise above your body and share your gifts with the world while supporting others in doing the same? As always, the conversation continues at cynthiapasquella.com. Head on over and leave a comment below this video telling me the one thing that you will do to go beyond your body and seek something bigger today. Did you like this video? If so, please subscribe and then share it with your friends. And if you want to hear more from me, including things that I only share in email, then head on over to cynthiapasquella.com and sign up for my email newsletter so you can become a part of this beautiful community of women who are discovering what they're really hungry for. On next week's episode of What You're Really Hungry For.
When you think about caring for yourself and doing things for yourself that help others, it's all about, well, what do I need? So that could be considered selfish, but maybe what you need is help from someone else, or maybe someone else has what you need.
The Institute of Transformational Nutrition offers the first and only personalized nutrition certification program that's backed by science and proven to get clients actual results and coaches actual income. If you're ready to be proud of what you do, feel like you matter, make a difference in someone's life, and actually get paid for it, then visit transformationalnutrition.com to take your first class toward your certification for free.